Welcome to Job Hunting in Times of Crisis, Strategies and Best Practices, a webinar which I've put together with Kurtis Daniel Winn and Norbert Bajorg. So let me take you to what we've prepared for today. And so we'll spend probably around 20-25 minutes on just presenting the content that will include who are we. We'll share practical steps individually, so you will hear directly from myself, Kurtis, and Norbert. And then we'll go into tools and pointers to who is actually hiring right now. And obviously we'll be concentrating mainly on technology businesses. And then we've allowed probably around 20-25 minutes for questions and answers. So we'll see how that goes. When we were putting this webinar together, we thought of a few objectives. One of those was actually to provide practical examples on how to really secure a role in crisis time, and hopefully this webinar will deliver that for you. We also sense that there is a need to infuse some inspiration and motivation. Some people in particular need that at this stage. And also to show who is actually hiring right now, where to uncover those opportunities. And we've been doing a lot of research and talking to a lot of businesses and people in our network, and we've managed to pull something together. And then we have other sources from different places which we'll also share with you. So very briefly, just to introduce myself, Chris Harazinski, I'm the founder of Optima Europe. I've been in recruitment for 15 years, really actually hiring globally, mainly within digital marketing and software industry. Before I started Optima in 2013, I worked for technology companies. You can see I work with Salesforce and Oracle and Adobe. So that's very briefly about me. I think we probably need to give you a very quick overview if you haven't ever come across Optima. So we specialize in hiring talent across UK, Western Europe, and also the US. The main positions that we tend to recruit for across sales, marketing, senior executives, and also client services. Marketing technology and generally software as a service and technology companies, that's our sweet spot. Some of the examples of companies that we've been working with, you can see below. There's far more on our website in case you were interested. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a background and overview. Now, going into the practical bits now, in terms of, we'll be actually speaking from our own experience here. So I will share from my past experiences. First of all, a few do's in current time which can work well. And I remember back in 2008, the massive crisis, and I lost my job very quickly, and obviously that was quite emotional. But I remember I reached out to my network, and I just started, talking to people, networking, and actually throughout that I secured a dream job at that time. So so obviously, things are possible. The second thing, and again from my own experience, is to be systematic and organized. And so I used to have a spreadsheet really of all the jobs that I would apply for, and if I didn't hear back, within 5-7 days, I would actively follow up, and both email and phone calls. And I remember in the past I actually landed a job just purely because of that, because one company really liked my proactive approach, and they saw the qualities that they were looking for in a prospective candidate. So I think especially now you need to be out there, you need to actively follow up on the different opportunities you're applying for. It's not going to harm you, it can only help. I also believe a man reaps what he sows, and now is also a time to invest in new skills and coaching. So obviously utilizing the time to maybe gain new skills. And I've been talking to a lot of candidates recently. They engage coaches to maybe uncover new passions, to understand what they really want to do as a next step, and things like that. So it's probably a really good time to look into maybe new things. And we also I also encourage people just engage to help others, because this is really uncharted territory that we've all entered it, and we're all in this together. It's a season which will pass, so it's good to sort of use the time well, and sort of invest thinking about the future and how that can benefit you later on. Another thing is maybe it's also a time for you to consider take risk. I remember back in 2013, I wasn't actually really planning to start this business, but because I was at the point in my career where I actually had nothing to lose, and just took a chance. So think about maybe taking a risk and trying something new, using the time. In terms of the don'ts, something that we've seen a lot, I've seen a lot in my recruitment career: don't be desperate, don't panic. Yes, the job market changed, but it doesn't mean your value changed. You still have your experience behind you, you still have your skills behind you, and remember just to use that to play to your strength. And generally speaking, when we work with different clients, there is a rule of thumb that nobody really likes desperate candidates. So just make sure that even if you go for interviews, don't come across as desperate for a job. Another thing, people ask, should I drop salary expectations? The market is difficult and things like that. We would say no. At least go for what you've been, earning before. Again, from my own experience in the last crisis back in 2008, I actually managed to secure an uplift of 25% on the previous job that I had. So just stay positive, really. Negative thinking, that's a really a turn off for a lot of companies and a lot of hiring managers. We understand that people right now, they go through emotions, especially if you've been mistreated. Maybe you work for a company for a long time, and they've let you go, and maybe it didn't go the way you were hoping it would go, and there's going to be negative emotions. Make sure you don't take it to your next interview, your next potential company you could work for. A lot of our clients, they very easily pick up on that, and they don't really like that attitude. And Kurtis, who'll be speaking next, he will be picking up on this a little bit more very soon. And then also, don't think a permanent role will give you security. Something like job security doesn't exist these days. Yes, you may be in a permanent role, but it doesn't really mean anything. Stay open-minded to other options. If there are options for contract and temporary positions, and you like the role, you like the company, you like the people, maybe it's something that it's worth considering, because that may turn into a permanent position in the long term. And then that takes me to the next slide. Again, on a practical level, your LinkedIn is actually really important, especially if you work in a professional environment, if you work within sort of technology space. And maybe I'll be saying, very basics. Maybe you've heard that before, but it's just bear with me. Your photo is really important because that for a lot of people it decides whether somebody will actually click and open your profile and decide to spend a bit more to read. Make sure you have a professional photo, positive looking, which will encourage people to contact you and to engage with you. Another thing is we would advise, and you can check my profile, you can check Norbert's profile, Kurtis' profile. The headline should answer what pains do you solve. So, for example, if you don't know, a training manager or you're selling training, have a headline which says, for example, I work with non-selling professionals. I think my headline is, we place people in business critical roles and things like that. So give people a very quick idea in terms of what do you really bring to the table. Another thing is your profile summary. So what value do you really add? What problems do you solve with your skills and your experience? So an example could be, I help clients from whatever industry to deal positively with, so it really depends obviously on your role, but have a think, answer that question. What value do you really add? What problems do you solve for your future employer? Another thing is profile keywords, search optimization. So obviously we as recruiters, we search LinkedIn, and if you want to come up in our searches high, if your profile includes a lot of keywords, relevant keywords, obviously the chances are you will come up on the top. So again, another example, if you're a user designer, make sure that words such as user experience design, all the abbreviations, customer experience, user interface, etc., make sure that it's somewhere included in your profile, because we would use those keywords to find you, and then obviously you want to come up, on the first couple of pages of our searches. And then another thing is hand up. Maybe you know that, maybe you don't, but there is something in your privacy settings, which is for recruiters visibility only. So we would see that on our side, which shows that you are open to opportunities. Again, that increases your visibility in our searches, and it can be to your advantage as well, because there may be businesses which they want to hire quick, and if you, for example, available immediately, then obviously that could play to your strength. So hopefully you find that helpful. I will hand over to Kurtis. Kurtis, are you there?
I am indeed. Thank you, Chris. Hello, everybody. Hope everyone's well. Sorry, I'm just putting down my cup of coffee. So I'm Kurtis, and I am dialing in from Essex, not London, where Chris is, where it's also nice and sunny. I'm currently building my house down in my garden, and my man cave at this moment. So one of the positives that social distances has provided us is an opportunity to finish off those tasks that otherwise would never get done. 2 years down the line, I still haven't finished it off, so I've got no excuse now. I know Chris and Norbert, as they have helped me build out my sales teams within the SaaS world, both here and in the UK and in Germany. And so they've asked if I would be interested in joining today's webinar to be able to provide my insights around things to be considered and concentrated on while seeking your new role. I've worked in technology sales for over 15 years and started out as a BDR through to mid-market, to enterprise, to my most recent roles where I've taken the steps into sales leadership. There I lead, develop, hire elite BDEs and that have the ability to grow and scale within the revenue functions within a business. I love sales, and it's given me so much over the years. I'm very passionate about young people whose wish it is to be given a chance within sales, and nothing makes me happier than seeing others succeed, my team succeed, and I see my role as an absolute privilege to be entrusted with the futures of the next potential superstars. However, at this moment in time, I'm currently furloughed. I'm not sure of how many on the line are furloughed today, but what that basically means is that in the light of contraction in the retail sector due to social restrictions caused by coronavirus, my company, who target the retail sector, do not have sufficient work within the business to maintain current staffing levels, which means that as a result, I've been temporarily laid off until further notice. So look, during this time, I'm still an employee of my company. I love my company, but I'm not expected to work, which I find it very hard, as I'm not one for sitting around doing nothing. So I'm currently using this time to help others find new roles by helping connect them with people in my network who can help them, such as Optima and the guys on the line today. And if you check out my LinkedIn profile, which you're more than welcome to do after, you'll see a lot of video content I'm creating that pass on best practices needed to master in order to become a successful salesperson. So that's what Chris and Norbert saw recently, and that's the reason why they've asked if I could join today's call to talk about what best practices I would advise when looking for a new job. Excuse me. Now, I could have spoken about an awful lot of things today, an awful lot of things that are important to you at this time, but I wanted to focus on 6, as not only do I think that they're important, but since we have all this time on our hands, it's worth really taking the time to do things correctly and put together a structure and follow a process when looking for our new roles. So number 1, attitude. I know Chris mentioned this towards the end of his earlier presentation, but for me, I'm going to start with attitude. For me, a good attitude is a starting point of anything that you are wanting to be successful at in life. Positive attitude, positive frame of mind is essential. It will help you pull through when times are hard, and times are hard right now. Looking for jobs and roles is not easy in a time when people's budgets are frozen, people's headcounts are frozen, people aren't necessarily looking to build out their sales teams. I appreciate I'm focused on sales a lot, but I'm from a sales background, just in case you're not on looking for sales roles. The way in which you hold yourself, your attitude is going to be seen and felt by others in a way that you come across. You're going to need that attitude in these times because jobs are scarce. So make sure that that attitude is correct. Having a good attitude then goes down to number 2, making a plan. That we've got all the time in the world right now and your future is at stake. So advice here is do not sell yourself short and scattergun the market with your CV and send your details across to any old company in the market. You really need to make a real plan. Decide upon what's important to you. You need to think about, what are you passionate about? What would you love to do? What strengths do you think that you have that would make you an ideal candidate? Why do you want to work somewhere? Make a plan and put together a list of companies that fit the bill. Not too many there, though, because there's going to be an awful lot of work that you need to do to go into researching and understanding the role and the company and the team that you're interviewing with and for. So in order to give yourself the best chance and not to dilute your efforts, start with around 4 to 5 companies. Next one, Chris. Research. Okay, so look, let me tell you now, the number 1 reason why candidates fail is because they don't prepare enough. They don't do the research required. They let themselves down as if they can't demonstrate that they're prepared to do the hard work, due diligence and their homework when they need a job, how can a hiring manager be convinced that you do it when they have the job? Mapping out the decision makers and influencers, understanding the technology and how the product helps people, and what recent develops has the company happened. What plans for the future do they have? Your research is really going to help you set you apart from the other candidates and help build your credibility and it helps gain confidence with every insight learned. A great tip here that I've had over the years that you should definitely take away would be, remember that when you are interviewing for a company, you're not expected to become an expert. You're not walking into a job knowing everything. When you research the company and the things that you don't know, make sure that you create a list of those things that you don't know as you go along, because that list that you create can help you put together a list of questions for later when you're asked. So when you're in that interview and they've asked, what questions do you have? You've got a list prepared. You're not left thinking, oh, what can I ask? Because you have great questions. And again, it shows the level of depth of research that you've done. So if you're going to take anything away, that's a great tip to take away. Number 4, your brand. Chris touched upon it earlier, but so many times I've seen decisions made on quick judgment drawn from your CV and or your social media profile. That your brand is a direct reflection upon you, and once you're in the process, the interview process, people will do their homework on you. It's only natural. again, you have all the time in the world right now. So what is it that's stopping you from getting those CVs perfect? If you have questionable posts or pictures, etc., on social media that may not be painting you in the best light, remove them or lock down your accounts and make them not accessible to the public. I'm not saying don't be who you are, but what you're going after, the roles in which you're going after right now in this market are highly, hotly contested positions. So you've got to ask yourself, what will your profile say about you? Number 5, thanks, Chris. Outreach. All of the above points that I've mentioned will help you when it comes to one of the most crucial aspects of job hunting, and that's the outreach. So look, anyone can send a CV, but to really set yourself apart and to really give yourself the best chance of getting ahead, piquing someone's interest and grabbing their attention, then you need to be doing more than just the sending a CV. You need to be more than just a number. You need to accompany any CV with an outreach. So LinkedIn, emails, letters, social engagement, phone calls are all acceptable ways of outreach. But most importantly, the outreach needs to be hyper-personalized. It needs to be unique to that individual and to be able to be impressive enough to make you memorable. Okay, if you're able to outline the reasons why you want to work for that company, highlight the research and efforts that you've made so far, and showcase how professional you are, then truly there is no reason that further conversation with you wouldn't be of value and of interest to the person that is interviewing. I think another good tip here is to think about your letter that you accompany a CV with. If you can simply take that letter and replace the dear Mr., dear Mrs., dear whoever, simply by inserting somebody else's name, then that is not a personalized outreach. That personalized outreach needs to be personalized and specific to that specific role. Okay, the right outreach for the right person. Otherwise, it's just a waste of time. And finally, this follow up and not close. The amount of times that I've interviewed really good candidates and they have either not closed me, which is, as you can imagine, really important in sales jobs, and or haven't followed up the interview with a follow-up email. You know, how much do you want the job? I promise you that it makes a difference and carries an awful lot of weight in the hiring manager's decision-making process. A nice thank you email to follow up your interview with, highlighting your key takeaways, areas to work on, next steps, additional questions, comes across so professional, and it gives you the opportunity to further shine and demonstrate how you would deal with prospects should you be given the role. I can give you so many examples when I have personally interviewed great candidates, candidate A and candidate B, and I've got one position and you're just on the line, you don't know who has impressed you enough, you're not quite sure, you think they can both do a good job, and then they go away and only one of the candidates comes back with a follow-up thanking you for their time. Let me tell you who's going to get their job. I don't think I need no prizes for guessing who's going to get their job. Look, I think I haven't made any of these points up. I haven't reinvented the wheel here. This is not anything new that I'm trying to teach you here, but you'll be amazed how many people don't get these fundamental basics right. So I think the real message is, start right, because your next role is out there, I promise. And the last tip I just wanted to get across to you today, just before I pass you over to Norbert, is when you turn up for an interview and you're there half an hour, 40 minutes, please, for the love of Christ, turn up with some way of taking notes. If at the end you have questions to ask and or you're taking feedback, how are you going to remember it? Be professional, be prepared, be polished, turn up prepared. It really does set the scene. So if I was going to give one more tip, that would certainly be one to pass across to you. Thank you very much. Norbert, over to you.
Hi guys, it's Norbert here. I am a talent acquisition partner at Optima Europe here in London, and have been involved with the company since 2014. So what I want to do today is I want to share with you one and very simple strategy that is simply follow the money. Follow the money strategy has worked really well for me over the last 2 decades, and the strategy will always yield results, not only in the times of recessions and downturns like we are facing today, but in general. Well, the first point is that, we have been here before. If you look historically, on average, we have a recession every 5 to 10 years. In 2008, we had a housing bubble. Obviously, nobody saw that coming. In 2001, we had an internet bubble. Nobody saw that coming either. In 1997, we had an Asian crisis. Nobody saw that coming. And yet again, today we have a coronavirus. And yes, you already know it. Nobody saw that coming. Well, maybe except Bill Gates. Well, the bottom line here is that if you are, let's say, 30 years old, you probably have another 5 to 7 recessions ahead of you. So simply following that strategy, follow the money strategy, will always help you be a winner, especially during those difficult times. So let me explain. I'm going to give you an example on my own experience, how I applied the strategy and how it worked for me. So I lived through two recessions, and this is going to be the third one. So when I graduated in 2001, I was faced with a big economic crunch after the internet bubble that burst a year earlier. I was in the United States back then and was really scared, as the prospects of finding a new job were very, very bleak. So I thought to myself, well, Norbert, you need to adapt. You need to adapt, otherwise you will end up on the street. I wanted to work in marketing because that was my field of study, but actually nobody was hiring in marketing at the time. So I realized that, look, despite the recession, there had to be some places, some companies, some people that were still doing well and still hiring. Somebody had to make money in that environment anyway. So my first job out of uni was with a TV cable company. Basically, a friend of mine told me that AT&T, a cable company, was hiring implementation consultants to set up TV receivers, as more and more people were spending a lot of time at homes watching telly because simply they lost their jobs. So well, look, history repeats itself. Look what's happening now. We all stuck at home. So I got my first job paying $10 per hour, and I was safe. That job with AT&T, obviously setting up receivers, was not really the greatest in the world, but guess what? It paid the bills. But I never looked back. Always looked ahead. I was an ambitious person, and while at AT&T, I thought to myself, well, there had to be some other opportunities as well. Somebody had to make money, invest money, and hire people. So I started researching and found out that actually MBA schools were on a rise and in demand. And simply, a lot of people decided to use that extra spare time during the recession to educate themselves. So I found a job on an MBA school, paying $14 per hour. A job at school operations, helping professors run MBA programs. Still no marketing job, but who cares? I was making money. In 2005, I moved from Chicago to London because I was thinking about getting more international experience, and was searching for some opportunities in Europe. And again, simple rule: follow the money. Where's the money? Who's hiring? Who's making money at the time? So I took a trip to the UK for a week and spoke to a lot of people. And during that trip, I discovered that financial services companies were on a hiring spree. So I moved and joined ITG, which is a financial services company, as a sales rep. And again, I followed simple rule of looking at who's making money and who's hiring. But guess what? 4 years later, a housing bubble came in, and I was faced with being made redundant. And just to give you a perspective, when that bubble burst, at the peak in the financial services in London, there were about 330,000 people working. Within a year and a half, there were just about 200,000. So pretty much like almost 50% decrease. The industry was absolutely disseminated. I was even more scared at the time because my first son was born right in the middle of that storm. So I started doing some research, trying to figure out, who would be doing well in the financial service industry anyway. And I realized that there was a huge demand for investment research at the time. The bubble burst, the markets, tanked, and simply, a lot of people were looking for some guidance what to do. So even though the entire industry was shrinking, there were still small pots within that sector that continued to grow. So again, I was following a simple follow the money rule. I talked to a lot of people and joined BCA Research as a sales rep. And then I moved to another firm and another firm. In 2013, I was looking for some, fresh out of the box ideas, as the financial services industry was not performing well. Well, look, after the crisis, there continued to be layoffs. A lot of new financial regulations came in. So it was really difficult to find growth. The bottom line was that the industry never recovered fully to the pre-housing bubble times. So I started to look elsewhere, and discovered by talking to Chris, who you listened to a few minutes ago, that actually marketing technology space was on a rise. A lot of money was being pumped into the industry, and obviously as a result, a lot of people were being hired. So I changed not only industries, again, from financial services to marketing technology, but also changed jobs. Instead of being a sales rep, I became a headhunter. So you can see the path here, right? From a TV cable company, through MBA school, through financial services, market research, to finally a marketing technology. I was always following the money, joining companies that were doing well at a particular point of time. So my advice here is as follows: stay open-minded, right? Look at opportunities within your own sector. There has to be some pots that are still doing well. Consider, other sectors. That we're going to give you some ideas in a few moments, but don't concentrate only on the current one, but look elsewhere. And when the dust settles, consider maybe moving abroad. I know it's a bold statement here, but the borders are going to be reopened at some point. Change cities or change countries. So now we have put together something for you to help you navigate those choppy waters. So first thing, and you're going to get all the links in an email. So we have put together sort of a tool across the marketing technology and SaaS space. And basically that gives you an idea who's actually laying off people, who's got a hiring freeze, but most importantly is who actually is hiring. This is a user-generated list. We're going to be promoting that extensively over the next few weeks. So more and more entries are going to be there. So this is a great tool for you to look at, regularly, see who's hiring, and then obviously take it from there. Secondly, you're also going to get a link to that. These are the jobs in the UK, UK tech, plenty of open jobs with links to job spec, so you can look at that. And thirdly, another information about technical jobs. I guess we're going to have some of you already on a sort of a technical side of things here on this webinar. So technical jobs available across actually Europe. And finally, what we are going to be doing next week is we're going to be hosting another webinar, winners and losers, sector overview post COVID-19. So it's next Friday. You're all going to get a link, April 17th at 3 p.m. UK time. So what we're going to be talking about is, where is the money being spent at the moment? So simply, based on that follow the money strategy, we'll give you some ideas, where the money is being spent, who's doing well, which sectors will perform well. Just to give you a flavor, what we see at the moment is there's a lot of investment in coaching and training, management consulting, motion pictures, and actually gaming. Gaming is on a big rise here. And also we'll tell you definitely which sectors to avoid. I guess tourism is probably the one to stay away from for a long time. So look, thanks for your time. Let's get to a Q&A.
Yeah, thanks, guys. If anyone has got questions, you can use that Q&A icon, and you can post your question there, and we'll be happy to answer. We'll also come on video so you can see us. I think the question that I see here is, Kurtis, example of a good closing question. How shall I close? How shall I close confidently?
How should you close? Definitely confidently. How should you close? Closing should be a natural conclusion. Should you follow the process correctly? Should you go through the interview process, answering all the questions, making sure that you've answered and satisfied the person interviewing you at every stage. When you get to the end of the process, you should be able to fall naturally into the next steps. Definitely close, and I'm not talking about a hard close. I'm talking about questioning the person who's interviewing. Remember, this is, although it's an interview, remember this is a conversation between two parties to see if there is a way for you to work with each other. So how do you think that I've done? What reservations do you have? How do I compare to other candidates? What are the next steps? Have I done enough to be considered for the next stage? What would stop you from putting me through to the next stage? I think it just puts you in a position where you're able to confidently ask that question. And if it's a natural close and you've satisfied the answer, satisfied the questions throughout the process, next steps should be inevitable. If you haven't, make sure that you ask these questions, because it's important and imperative that you understand why you weren't successful so that you can practice and improve upon for next time. So that's how I would close.
Okay, yeah, great, thank you. There's a question coming. Any suggestions for an online interview? Kurtis, Norbert?
Yeah, okay, so I've done lots of online interviews as well. For being prepared, professional and polished, the 3 Ps. I love an acronym. Any person in my sales team will always tell you I've always got some acronym for a certain situation, but certainly you have to come across it's harder to come across online than it is in person, because you're obviously not in the room. You lose some of the tonality of the messages. You can maybe lose some of the facial expressions. It's important to have eye contact with someone, and you get limited amount on an online, but you will come across very confident in your answers to the questions posed by being prepared. If you come into the interview prepared, then there's no reason why you're unable to have a conversation with someone. There's no reason why you're able to confidently answer the questions given. And when asked at the end, what questions do you have? You're prepared. You have your list of questions. You are ready. It should just be a natural conversation. The more natural it comes across, and the more two-way the conversation flows, that person at the end of on the phone is going to come to the conclusion that this is someone I can talk to, this is someone I can work with, this is someone that I want to take to the next step. And it's always about the next steps. If you're having an online interview, what are the next steps? Is it a face-to-face one? And then that's my objective. That's what I need to do. What is it that I need to do to get to that stage? If obviously, as has been the case in the past where you're interviewing, I've been interviewing people, let's say over in the States, and I haven't had the chance to go over to the States, that becomes harder. But you just need to be able to go through your process in terms of when you get towards the end of the question, just make sure you've satisfied the interviewer. What else? What other concerns do you have? What would stop you from taking me through? There's no different between online and offline, other than you probably just make sure you have to work on having the confidence which is gained from the preparation that you do. Hopefully that makes sense. And if it doesn't, please ask me again.
No, it's good. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, what I'd like to add to that is I would basically treat the interview online as it was just a face-to-face. There's no difference. You all see each other, you all hear each other. You're not really in the same room. And the rule of thumb here is that it's better to be overdressed than underdressed. I've seen so many times, candidates coming to an interview with, jeans and t-shirts and completely, looking really, really unprofessional. So my advice here is, treat it as a regular face-to-face. It's just just a different sort of arrangement, and you know, it's better to be overdressed than underdressed.
And definitely don't wear caps.
Right, we've got a question which is in the pre-sales sort of field. How to present your job experience when you work as a pre-sales and you prepared for customers different solutions and strategies. What I could see that we need to show in the CV, where is the money, how you improve the XY process and how you optimize XY, Z, etc. Curtis, is this something in line? I mean, you've been...
Yeah, that's fine. I've interviewed for pre-sales before. Hi, Adam. It's horses for courses, isn't it? Because if you're interviewing for a sales role, commercially facing role, then clearly what's important in your CV needs to be, here was my target, here's my performance, this is what I achieved, of course. As a pre-sales person, in my experience in working in the software industry, to have a commercially focused pre-sales person is fantastic. But again, look, your main job is to help people to solve questions or come up with solutions to challenges that customers have. So I think case examples of where you've been successful, to name reference companies that you've worked for. I know Norbert spoke about following the money, but again, you know, sales and pre-sales and marketing will have three very different aspects to what the interviewer would be looking for. So I wouldn't necessarily, whilst yes, follow the money in terms of which company you should be looking to go for, in terms of, you know, if a company has just completed a Series B round of 100 million, that's following the money. That means there's investment there. That means that that company has a view for the future, for growth potentially. And that's a question that you need to find out. That's a path I would certainly look to follow. But in terms of your CV, how you show your CV, I would concentrate on what solutions and challenges, what solutions you presented, what challenges you've solved, how you've helped the customer. That's what I would focus upon. Also, again, it's not just your CV that you're sending out. I think I spoke about the fact that you should definitely, your outreach should include some level of hyper-personalized follow-up or an email to explain further what you do, because you are more than just what's written on a piece of paper, on a CV, 100%. Your next role, your next stage is to take that CV, which is a prerequisite for maybe a hiring manager or maybe the recruitment manager, internal recruiter within that company, to get to the next step. They need to see that CV, but really and truthfully, this is where the money is, that you, him, her, the conversation that you have. Make sure you follow up with a personalized email or a letter, handwritten as well. I've written handwritten letters in before. They work, right? It grabs people's attention. But certainly as a pre-sales person, you solve problems. You bring about solutions. That's what I would concentrate on. And if that doesn't make sense, feel free to answer another question.
Now, from my perspective, because Chris and I go through, you know, thousands and thousands of CV, being as headhunters, and what really amazes me is that I would say 80% of the time, salespeople don't put any numbers in there, right? So, you know, how much they have closed and how much, you know, they have generated, what was the performance against target. So my suggestion, coming from pre-sales, is to you know, speak to your colleagues. If you don't have those numbers handy, let's say you've been involved with you know, pre-sales over the last 2 years, closing a lot of deals, and you don't have the numbers, put that all together and summarize that in a few bullet points. So and that's going to stand out, because when someone sees like you've helped close 25 deals, let's say 2.5 million pounds, and these are the key wins, that's definitely going to stand out. And you're going to be applying and talking to head of sales, and head of sales are very you know, numbers driven, right? They look at numbers every day, targets, performance against the targets, KPIs such as how many phone calls you've made, how many demos you've delivered, etc. So beef it up. If you don't know the answers, if you do not know the answers, speak to your colleagues, to your salespeople that you worked with, so they can supply you with those, and then put that on your CV.
Yeah, we can see Adam's comment that he helped to close the biggest deal in the company.
Here we go. That's the winner.
CV.
that should be like at the very top.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A question I think for Norbert, how do I position myself if I switch industry? You know, bearing in mind that there will be people already from the industry, you know, competing probably for the same job.
Yeah, I think it's an excellent question, and obviously I've changed industry so many times. Well, the three things I think, maybe four actually, is that when you do a lot of research, and that's Kurtis also touched on that. Sometimes you coming from the outside, you may know even more than someone who's actually on the inside, because you have a sort of a holistic approach. You look at things from different angles from the outside, and you may capture some of the very interesting developments that someone who's stuck in their job, making phone calls and not really having an opportunity to sort of step away and look at it from the big point of view. That by doing that research, you will come across as someone very, very knowledgeable. So that's number one. Number two, in such tough situations, especially during downturns, out of the box thinking is going to be absolutely essential. So you should basically highlight that. Look, I come from a different sector. I have experience in a completely different field, but that I will give you a sort of a fresh look, and that could benefit your company and your process and your sales process dramatically. Number three, I think the motivation here. Someone who's going to come from the outside of the industry is going to have a bigger motivation to show everyone that he or she is very successful. And so make sure you highlight that. And final thing, I guess, is the passion. If you show a lot of passion to learn, because obviously going into an industry, the learning curve is going to be much steeper. But if you show, you have to come across as someone very passionate. If you show them that, they will see that you actually can be more successful than someone who's been in this industry for the last 10 years and they're already sort of running out of steam. They are not thinking clearly, and obviously in downturn, people get demotivated. So you play on those soft aspects. You not play on the hard aspects, but you play on the soft aspects. How you basically come to a table with different mindset, with research, with motivation and passion.
Great, thank you. Another question, what if I don't have a network? Well, I think it's a perfect time to actually probably build your network. So make a decision in terms of, where do you want to expand your network? Who do you want to target? Kurtis was talking about, have a plan, research different companies that could be of interest, research the businesses that are, still on the winning side, and just be proactive and just try to approach, the potential hiring managers, sending them a note on LinkedIn, or if you can, and I promise you, that's actually a miracle, especially now, people answer calls. If you are able to get hold of them on the phone, you'll be amazed. People are free to talk, and we can see that, in our business. I simply pick up a phone every day, and suddenly everyone is available. People that I wasn't able to talk to before, somehow, they give me the time, and you can connect with them. So I think it's an excellent time really to build your network, and that will also make you look different. You will stand out from the crowd, because I don't think actually many people really do that or utilize the opportunity in that way. Just checking another question. Ansi, is it advisable to switch your job given a surprise opportunity comes up, even if your current employment has a great amount of security? Well, obviously that's there is a risk there involved. We know there is a rule, unwritten rule, first in, first out. So there is that risk. Unless you can negotiate maybe something in your contract, a clause, if you're going for a senior role, that your notice period, for example, will be, let's say, 6 months. So you will have that extra sort of buffer in the new role. I think it's a very individual thing to decide. I don't know whether there's a general rule of thumb, whether you should go for a new job given the current circumstances. I spoke to a global VP sales a few days ago, in a good job, secure, but he just had an offer this week coming through from another company, and he decided to go for it. So I think it probably depends what is the level of risk you can tolerate, and whether there's more pros or cons in the current situation. So yeah, happy to connect with you, Ansi, directly afterwards if you wish to.
If I may just jump in here as well. My observation here is being out, going through 2 recessions, no job is secure in a downturn. People basically change their attitudes and strategies regularly. So you may feel that your job is secure today, it may not be secure tomorrow. In terms of thinking, I have a framework in mind to think about whether your company is going to do well, and as a result, your job is going to be secure and you're going to do well. So the 3 things is that if your company offers a cheaper product or service to its competitors, that is a thumb up. In times of recessions, CFOs, for the clients that you serve, all those CFOs are going to be trimming down, cutting costs drastically to protect the bottom line. So if your company offers a cheaper product, so to its competitors, let's say on average the product is sold at 20K, and you have a similar product, maybe it's not as fancy schmancy as the top ones, but it's sort of does a similar job, but it's half the price. So your company is going to capture market share from its competitors, because it's inevitable that CFOs are going to be cutting costs and looking to replace what they have in place at the moment with some cheaper options. So let's say, they have a CRM system in place that costs 50 grand. They're going to be looking at, okay, can we actually, cut the price and implement something cheaper to save money. Number 2, whether the top management team is flexible and can easily adapt by reducing prices. If they can do that, thumbs up. So they're not going to be focusing on keeping to the pre-crisis levels of pricing, but they're going to be adapting quickly because they really care about their customers. Then it's a thumb up. And number 3 is, if your top management team is flexible and focusing on keeping staff despite the downturn, that's another thumb up. Because if you see around that, okay, it's tough, but they talk to employees and they say, maybe we should take a 20% or 30% off a reduction on your pay, because we want to secure, because in the long term we believe that it's cheaper to keep an employee than fire hire, because there's this learning curve that is costing the company a lot of money. So if the top management is flexible and keeping staff, that's another thumb up. So if you think about it in that sort of framework, then if you answer those questions yourself, or maybe do a lot of digging and analyzing going forward, that will give you an idea whether your company is going to perform well. And if yes, it means that your job is going to be more secure than otherwise.
Great, thank you. I'm conscious of time. We kind of promised to keep it within 45 minutes. We're already 10 minutes over time. Hopefully people don't mind. I don't see any other questions. I can see the poll results.
Chris, there's a Q&A section.
Q&A in the middle. Yeah, there's about 7 questions there that you might, if you're going to continue, great. If you are going to cut off, then obviously we can email the person's name there. You can send an email reply to those questions.
I don't think I can see that. Unless you can.
Yeah, I can see it, Chris. So the first question here is, have you heard of pay cuts in sales jobs? Actually not. What I've seen is that when companies are cutting, they are basically getting rid of the typically the sales reps that are the underperformers, and they're actually keeping the top performance and bumping their salaries. That's based on my experience. Kurtis, you've been in sales positions as well. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, what I would, from my experience, I would say no. I have, number one, I haven't heard of any pay cuts in sales jobs. I think if you are currently in a job, I know that senior management, so my senior management team at Metro, they would have taken pay cuts in order for more people to remain within the business. From a senior management point of view, if you're in the job, that's voluntary. That's that has happened. But in terms of going for a new job, let's say for argument you was going for a job, let's say, I don't know, the salary was 50k, you're not going into that job and going in at 30k just because of the conditions we're in. So no pay cuts there, but within organizations, yes, senior management have taken action to ensure the continuation of a company. That has happened, but not for new jobs. I've not heard, no. And as to, I think Chris's point earlier, I certainly wouldn't be selling yourself short and looking to have that going in lower than what you should have.
There's another question. What do you think about idea to leave from permanent contract position IT in the next few months and trying to find something better in these times, or it's definitely not a good time for it? I guess we talked about it already. No job is secure. If you put that framework in place and what I discussed in a few moments, then you can see whether that job opportunity is the job that you have is secure or not. If your company is going to do well and the top management is flexible and keeping people, that's definitely a place to stay. I wouldn't definitely quit, but if something interesting comes up, definitely give it a shot. Do a thorough research, talk to a lot of people, do a proper analysis on where the company is, because it's always relative, right? Your company maybe is doing well and your job is secure because you've done your analysis and you feel, oh, my company is definitely going to do well in that environment. But you're going to then match it against the new opportunity, right? So if you do analysis and you see that actually this company is going to do even much better than my current one, that's definitely worth considering. So keep an open mind, do plenty of research, talk to people just to get an idea on the relative performance against your current employer.
Are there any other questions, guys? You need to help because for some reason I don't see it here.
Sorry, I've got another question here then. So when sending a note to hiring managers on LinkedIn to build network, what should we say? I think it's a good question. I don't mind giving a stab at this one at all. The way in which I would reach out on LinkedIn and when building a network would be over time. What I mean by that is I like to call it social engagement. Some people may call it social selling, but effectively you're reaching out to someone. So I've reached out to people in the past, and before my outreach, I've taken an interest in their posts. So for example, someone's written an article, someone's put up a video, I've liked it, I've commented, I've shared, I've had thoughtful questions as to why that's great and what I've learned, but what would it mean in this situation, which is try to solicit a response from that person. The reason I do that, and the reason why I do that over a period of time, i.e. in a structured process, would be when I actually outreach and ask a question, I don't want the first thing that I ask for to be something for me. I want to go into that, that situation having already warmed up the situation, so I'm not going in cold. Hey, Mr. Hiring Manager, I'm Kurtis. You may have seen that I've noticed this, or I've commented here, and that person will then give you the time, because the reason why you're calling is I'm interested in working with you because of these reasons. I'm interested in your company because of these reasons. I have a passion for this. That's what you do. I think there's a good conversation to have. But you need to be going in there remembering that hiring managers probably, I myself still probably get about 20 outreaches a day. And they kind of all become one And the ones that go to the top, the one that I do respond to is the one that's hyper personalized, that's grabbed my attention, because you know what, I can see this person. I know it's hard. Remember, I have done and been an SDR. I have been in a position where I've had to outreach. I've had to grab someone's attention, and it's bloody hard work. It's not easy. And so I recognize and respect people's outreach. I know that it's hard, and I know if you've made an effort, it's very clear that you've made an effort. Do you know what? I was given my chance once upon a time, so it's incumbent upon me to be given some of that chance as well. But again, care and consideration is needed. Don't scattergun. Be personal. Be yourself. But again, don't be so one-dimensional. Take a step back and think, what else can I know about this person? What else can I show that I've been interested? What else do I know about the company? That's how I would tailor my approach to that specific person.
There's another question here from Xavier. Not a question, but more a comment. The easy apply button on LinkedIn is good for candidates, but it is a bit of a trap as you have not the opportunity to write a specific personalized message. My advice here, don't use that easy apply button, because that's precisely what everyone else is doing. You got in times of recession and downturns, you have to think out of the box. You have to be different. You cannot follow the crowd, because you're going to be completely lost. At the moment, the HR departments are going to be receiving hundreds and hundreds of those applications, and they're not going to even have time to go through it. So you got to take an out of the box thinking. Abraham Lincoln said that if I have 6 hours to chop down the tree, I'm going to spend 5.5 hours to actually sharpen my axe. And that's precisely the approach that you should have here. So don't spend your time clicking those easy apply buttons, and then after 8 hours, you're going to feel satisfied that, I've applied to 100 or 450 jobs, because most likely, and the probability here is that you're probably not going to be very successful with that. I would take a very different approach, and that's what we talked about during this webinar and then Kurtis also talked about it a lot, is you have to make a plan. So if I were you, I would just basically, narrow down the industries first that you would like to concentrate on. Then within those industries, and identify companies that are, in your view, are going to be doing well going forward. Then once you identify those, identify people who are going to be hiring managers, not the HR, but let's say if you're applying for a sales job, identify a head of sales. If you're applying for a CSM role, find out who's the head of customer success, etc., etc. You get the point. And then write a personalized message. That's what Kurtis also said, is that it has to be personalized. Use some, do the research on posts, do the research on the company, and I can guarantee you that if you use this approach, you're gonna get much more interviews than just using that easy apply button over and over again.
Great. Is there anything else? Any questions there?
I think off the back of Sveta asked around how gimmicky can you get when personalizing communications. Hey, look, do you know what? In sales, be memorable. Honestly, if you're going to be memorable and be unique. And if it's your personality that's coming through here, it really is. That you're more than just what's written on a piece of paper. You're more than just a number. You're more than just someone who needs to hit a target. That personality that is weaved through, if it can be insightful, if it can be funny but professional at the same time, it's a fine balance, right? But I wouldn't necessarily suggest too gimmicky, but what's going to make them smile, what's going to make them remember you, and that's what's important. Remember, look, you're not going to on a cold outreach get a job there and then. That's not your job. Your job is not to be given, hey, that's a fantastic outreach, that's made me laugh, here's a job. That's not what it's about. Your job is to get their attention so they think, you know what, I've got time next week, 20 minutes, right? Let's put something in the diary. That's your job, because this is just a conversation. It's a continuation. Once you can get that stage, once you can get that amount of time with the decision maker or be involved in the process, then you can start to show the reasons why you can add value and why you can be a great member of the team, and then take the next steps. But yeah, look, make them smile, be memorable, but again, just be yourself. Definitely be yourself.
There's another question here. People appreciate smart humor. So would it be okay including images, for example, as part of my cover and thank you letter? Well, that's a tricky one, but different people have different sense of humors, right? Mm-hmm. So you can basically shoot yourself in the foot. My recommendation here is not to use that. I'd rather be professional and surprise people with your knowledge about the company, with your research you've done. Think about it not in terms of smart humor, but think about it in terms of smart comments and smart observations. I guess you're gonna have higher chances of getting someone's attention by using this versus smart humor, because simply at the end of the day, different people have different ways of looking at the same thing, especially when it comes to humor.
Well, one thing I'd add here, maybe a better suggestion than maybe smart humor, as you put it, is whenever you reach out to someone, one of the first things that you're going to do, if I was to reach out to, say, Norbert, one of the first things Norbert's going to do, if he doesn't know who I am, he's going to click on my link on my LinkedIn profile and see, right, who is this person? What is he about? And what the Norbert will see will be my brand. He will see what I have created, what content that I put in there. He will then make a judgment, a quick snap assumption based on the limited information he knows, whether or not it's the way the human brain works. So that content, that humor that you speak about, weave it into your professional channel on LinkedIn. If you look at mine, you'd see video content around tips that you need to master in order to get a job. That there, without knowing me, Norbert may think, oh, do you know what? He does practice what he preaches. Actually, this is not just a cold outreach, just for cold outreach sakes. Okay, let me see more. So you can gain an interest, gain and gather their interest organically by having your brand and profile as such that someone may want to continue without having to necessarily take the chance and the risk that gimmicky outreach may backfire, because ultimately you don't know what Norbert's personality will be like, whether he's going to take that one way or the other. So that is another way of getting around that.
And also here is the Chris. I work with Chris. We've been working at Optima for the last 6 years. We've known each other for over 20, and our brains work very differently. I'm a very sort of numbers oriented. Chris is more sort of a process oriented. So when we talk to each other a lot, we spot different things. When looking at the same stuff, I see different things to Chris, and Chris sees different things to what I see. So when you go about looking for a job, once you identify those hot opportunities, those hot industries, those hot companies, and those individuals, let's say you come up with a list of, okay, these are the 20 people that I have identified that I'm going to do a personalized outreach to. Have someone to look at those profiles, whether that's your colleague, your partner, your brother, your sister, your mom, and ask them this open question. Okay, so have a look at this person and tell me what you see. You would be surprised how many things you're not seeing, because people have different mindsets, people have different ways of looking at things. So yet again, it's the more work you put into it, the more successful you're going to be.
Guys, just to apologise, I have to leave. I've got another call I have to be on, so I'm going to leave you to Norbert.
Yeah, so just about to wrap it up. Yeah, thank you guys for the excellent contribution. Appreciate it, Kurtis.
Feel free to reach out on LinkedIn if you need.
You can log out, and I'll just wrap up in literally the next 30 seconds. So, so thanks everyone for attending. Hopefully you found it useful. We would definitely appreciate your feedback. Just email us at recruitment@optimaeurope.com, whether you liked it or you didn't like it. Either way, we're always happy to learn. That would be great. Secondly, I can see the polling results. Interesting enough, 60% of the audience is still in the full-time employed job, which is great news. 20% say they were made redundant, 10% place in the furlough, another 10% the role is at risk. So hopefully you found that useful. Another thing is we'll be sending you a follow-up email with, I mean, first of all, go on our website if you want the market overview, especially from the marketing technology industry, just to see who's hiring now. There's also a tab for our next webinars. So if you're interested in the winners and losers, next Friday, you can sign up for that. And then, hopefully you found that useful. Like I said, feel free to send us your feedback. We appreciate your time. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Good luck, guys.